Okay, guys, remember that anything you guys say will go out over the TalkShoe or Ustream thing, even though we're muted during breaks and stuff like that. Just FYI. Does that make sense? Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay? You'll hear the beginning here in a second. Okay. Sorry, are you okay on time then? Okay. You didn't know what you're getting yourself into, did you? You didn't know what you're getting yourself into, did you? It's Tuesday, March 16th, 2010, the day before St. Patrick's Day, and this is episode 25 of the Brian and Joe Radio Show. On today's show, we welcome author and psychologist Ann Paris to discuss her new book, Standing at Water's Edge, about helping artists unlock their creative process. Then later on, our regular contributing foodie, Katie Crossan, joins us, her first return since our holiday show, to share some spring cooking and eating well tips. But up first, Lori Pottinger from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and a thru hiker herself talks about hiking the more than 2,000-mile trail that stretches from Georgia to Maine. That's all today, live online at 4 p.m. the previous Friday, and being heard around the world and here in Cincinnati on WVQC, WVQC.org, Radio Free Cincinnati. This is the Brian and Joe Radio Show. Welcome to the Brian and Joe Radio Show. I'm Joe Wessels. And you said Brian Mueller. I forgot to turn on your mic, as I do that sometimes. Sorry. No, I think you were just perfect. Was it cutting out over the string? Good. Yes, we do. Yeah, it was all recorded. Kelly did all that for us. It's all done ahead of time, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So tell me, Brian. I know this is Friday, and then technically tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, if you're listening to this. So unless you're listening to us live, St. Patrick's Day, it's actually the Wednesday. Well, it's Wednesday the 17th, right? So we're pretending like it's Wednesday unless you're listening to us live right now. Then it's going to be. In a few days. But tomorrow it's St. Patrick's Day in Cincinnati because of the St. Patrick's Day parade and then the ensuing drunkenness that happens after that. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. Not so much the drunkenness, but I mean, I don't imbibe too much, but the parade's, it's downtown. Yeah, it's downtown. It's gotten bigger in the past few years. I think they decided to make it kind of a bigger deal, but now it's, I don't know where it starts, but it goes right by Fountain Square. So that's a good place that's where I usually watch it. So, next week or like tomorrow. Yeah, it is hard to keep it straight. So I think I don't know. It's supposed to get a little cooler. I don't know. I'm really bad at checking the weather. Usually I go outside and I often find out that I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm not wearing enough clothes or I'm wearing too much clothes. I'm not sure which. So, but that I don't know. Like Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Why? Well, they will be. I mean, oh, then you're supposed to eat it? Really? I would say. Yeah. I think so too. I haven't seen it. The only movie I saw was Avatar, and I didn't think it was that good. Plus, I think James Cameron's kind of an ass, so I just was sort of happy that he didn't win. He's not on top of the world this time, I guess. He just... Yeah. It was okay. Yeah, no, it's not Star Wars. But Star Wars didn't win any awards when it came out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she used to be married to James Cameron, and everybody was making a big stink about that, even though they were like they've collaborated on many projects since then. They were married like 20 years ago. So they're everyone's like, oh, it's the battle of the ex-spouses or something, and then now it's like, so what? They're like, we're actually friends. It's not a big deal, and we so but. Interesting. Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, I'm going to download it right now. I'm doing it right now. If you're seeing on the Ustream, I've got my iPhone right here. So got it out. Yeah, definitely. Did I say it right? I probably said it wrong, didn't I? Or did I say it right in the opening? I don't know. Maybe you couldn't hear it. Maybe that's good. You Okay, good. Yeah, thank you, Lori. And you're in West Virginia, and you sound great, which makes me happy because since I do all the engineering for this show, it always makes me happy when somebody's on like a nice USB microphone. If you're not here in studio, which I know would I actually suggested that you hike here for the show today, but this is actually just as good. Yeah. Or you could take like the yellow blazes, right? Don't take the yellow blazes, which is no, I saw that. Beautiful. No, that's okay. Oh my God, yes, I do. Yes, I do. But it was only for how long were we lost for? Maybe like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. I thought I was going to have to kill Brian and eat him. I was so hungry by the time we got out of the woods. Yeah, oh yeah, it was. I was so hungry. I was like thinking, I wonder how I could chew this rock. I mean, it was just insane. But because we didn't bring food with us. But anyway. Yeah, that's right. Interesting. Yeah. How many miles are you in? I mean, oh, really? Uh huh. Mm-hmm.
Earl Schaffer is the first. Is he the guy that created the put the idea out there to create the trail as well as the first through hiker?
No, he came along well after the trail was established. So he was the first to hike end to end, and he did get very involved in protecting the trail and doing some major reroutes of the trail, but he wasn't instrumental in the formation. But there is one very famous hiker from, I believe she's from Ohio, Grandma Gatewood. Isn't
Grandma
you guys
Gatewood?
ever heard?
No. Well, that sounds something familiar. I don't know. And I don't want to like Google that real
I don't-
quick. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not ringing a bell.
Yeah, she was well, the first solo female
Mm-hmm.
through hiker, and she supposedly hiked with just a 14-pound knapsack, and she wore a pair of Keds tennis shoes. I don't know if you ever heard of those, but those are just old style, back in the
Sure.
day, cheap tennis shoes. And she had like, I don't know, 16 grandchildren, and she's just this woman in her 60s that set out to hike the trail, and she became a real celebrity along the Appalachian Trail, eventually
Yeah.
doing it.
Oh, she's from Well, she died in Gallipolis, but she was born. So Gallipolis is in kind of
Southeastern.
southeastern Ohio. Yeah. So like around Hocking Hills, that area. So.
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
fascinating. So there's
She died. She was born in 1887. She died at 85 years old in 1973. So, pretty healthy woman.
So obviously there were a lot
Yeah.
of people that in the early days that hiked the trail and drew a lot of attention to the trail. What and actually probably made it more part of our national consciousness, especially here on the eastern half of the United States. But what is it that the Appalachian Trail Conservancy does exactly in order to preserve and manage the Appalachian Trail?
Well, we're the primary organization responsible for managing the trail. And the thing to remember is the AT is not just a footpath. Yes, it is a strip of dirt and rock that you walk on, but it's also essentially a national park, and there are 250,000 acres that form a buffer of lands to protect the trail. So we work with almost 7,000 volunteers in 30 local trail clubs, land managing agencies like the National Park Service and the Forest Service and some state land managing agencies to protect the footpath, keep the treadway open in good shape, and to protect all those wild lands that make the AT experience what it is. So it's monitoring the health of plants and animals, rare, threatened, endangered species, monitoring those borders, working to mitigate threats to the trail, things that would impact the scenic values of the trail, like cell towers or major highways, transmission powers, ski resorts, and not necessarily fighting those things per se, but working to have them located so they have the least visual impact on the trail. So sometimes it's just moving a proposed cell tower or wind tower in a slightly different location so it's not visible from these spectacular beauty spots where you have the sense of wilderness that would be totally destroyed by a cell tower in the wrong place, kind of thing.
Sure. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that you were a Russian literature major in college, and so I saw that and I said to myself, well, how does this person get involved with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy? So could you tell us a little bit about your story and your experience?
Oh, sure. Well, I got into Russian literature because I was interested in philosophy and started reading the great Russian novels, and they're all about philosophy and the meaning of life. And there's a lot about suffering. And, there's something about the Appalachian Trail that affords a really deep spiritual experience if you want it. And the more I got exposed to the Appalachian Trail, the more I found like this is, to me, something in America rather than Russia that gives us a chance to explore the deeper meanings of our personal journeys in life. And I found this is a place where people are really good to one another. It's a place where people say that their faith in mankind is restored because of the interactions that are fostered on the trail and the work of volunteers. It's a place where you just feel at one with nature when you're out there, but you feel really connected to people too. And it's sort of like for me, it's like the high moments of my life have been spent on the Appalachian Trail. And I've met so many other people for whom it does the same thing. It's just, just one of the best things that America has to offer. And I have to say, when you get into long distance hiking, there's a certain amount of suffering that's often involved. So to me, there were some natural connections.
So I'm curious, just kind of like the nuts and bolts of the trail. If I want to hike it, what's the best way to do it? Do you go north to south, south to north? Do you start in February? Do you start in June? I mean, can you give us some ideas about how if you would go about doing that if you were going to do something like that?
Well, if you were attempting to hike the whole trail, to do a through hike, I can tell you what the most popular standard approaches are.
Yeah.
Most people start in Georgia at the southern end and go north. Most start in the
And where is the southern
March.
terminus? I'm sorry, where's this?
It's Springer Mountain,
Springer Mountain,
Georgia,
right.
about hour and a half north of Atlanta.
And that's where Brian and I have both been there, to that spot. So
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's a nice spot.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's kind of where the wild mountains of the Appalachians start. So you would start in March or April, and you'd plan on taking approximately 6 months to get to the other end. You have to reach Maine by October 15th. That's when the park closes, at least to overnight use. And then you would carry 3 to 5 days worth of food at a time, and then at frequent intervals go into town and either buy your food from a local grocery store, country store, or you would take advantage of a post office or business and mail yourself food that you'd purchased ahead of time.
Like, when do you mail it? Do you like, because it takes often. Well, I mean, I see there's some people that, or I read that people sometimes run the trail and done it in 47 days. I think this was, I read on Wikipedia, was the record. I don't know if that's the actual record, but
yeah, we don't officially verify those records, but yeah, in terms of self-reported speed, that the fastest is just under 47 days.
Yeah.
But the average person takes 6 months, and most parts of the trail are pretty rugged. It's a footpath built to accommodate just people. It's not for horses or ATVs or bikes or anything like that. So it's even doing the average 12 miles a day that's required to do a 6-month hike. That's a pretty grueling 12 miles. And then you want to take a day off every week or so that actually bumps your average, your daily mileage a little higher. So even doing 6 months, it's not a leisurely hike by any stretch of the imagination.
And
people do run it. In some places, it's really more, especially in New England, it's as much climbing or scrambling as it is actually hiking.
Oh, really? So, I mean, you're able to do it with a backpack and that, or in hiking boots, or is it something where you actually have to kind of drop the backpack and do like climbing type stuff?
There's no technical climbing, but there are places you have to use your hands. Usually you can keep your pack on, but there are a few places it's easier to just drop your pack down 5 or 10 feet and then pick it up.
Okay.
But it's there are other places that are much more gentle, especially here in the Mid-Atlantic. And in fact, a great place to start the trail, if someone just wanted to start with easy day hikes, is right here in Harper's Ferry, because the very easiest part of the entire trail is just across the river from us, where it coincides with the C&O towpath, and it's perfectly flat for 3 miles. So it's not all hard.
Yeah, and that's I think there's a picture of that. That's you said the towpath. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, back in the 1800s, mules would pull barges from Cumberland, Maryland, down to D.C., and they would tow the barges. That's why it's called a towpath. Of course, you don't see those anymore, but you see.
No, we have some of those in Ohio.
Horses. Beg your pardon?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we had some of those in Ohio, because I know, and there's a little delay. Unfortunately, with the Skype, sometimes we can talk over each other, which is the only drawback to it. But there are towpaths in Ohio because we had canals here. That's my 1 minute long point that I was trying to make. That's all.
One thing I wanted to mention.
Sure.
One thing is that you guys have a lot of hikers, AT hikers out there in Ohio. In fact, we looked, and there are almost 500 Appalachian Trail Conservancy members in Ohio, and you have, 62 people from Cincinnati alone that have hiked the entire Appalachian Trail.
Oh, no kidding.
Including two did it last year.
Oh, no kidding. Can you say who they are?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to?
Oh, gosh.
Put you on the spot. If you don't know, it's okay.
Yeah, I had it sorted, and then I looked for Grandma Gatewood and lost their names.
Oh, that's okay.
But you've got
Does this
some
information appear on your website?
Go ahead, Brian.
It doesn't, but hopefully in the future we'll have it up there. But we've got some interesting trail names from Ohio. It dances with skunks and danger moose and cyclops.
Interesting.
How do you like those?
Nice. Fantastic.
Now,
so
you mentioned that this obviously is not the kind of trail that somebody just takes on. There's obviously a lot of planning and conditioning involved. What do you recommend people do if they want to hike the Appalachian Trail? What are the steps that people typically take?
Well, there's a ton of information on the web. That's a good place to start. Our website is really good for beginners to get people initiated in their forums and discussion groups. But the next thing is to start hiking in your local area and gradually building up from a day pack to a full pack, and just seeking out the hills that you have there in Ohio. And that's the best way to get in shape, is actually
thanks for admitting that we have hills here, because a lot of people think we're just flat. When I lived in California, people said, Ohio, what do you do for, because we'd go climbing and that out in California, and they said, what do you guys climb out there, corn stalks? So, and we
That's
don't.
not fair.
It's not fair, no. We build
I think
walls.
The Midwest is flyover country and just flat.
Yeah.
No, I know you've got some decent hills there, and they're good for getting in shape,
Yes.
for sure.
I should try hiking
And of
one of them
course,
one time. I think we're all three
Yeah,
trying to talk
coming
at the
out-
same time. So, Lori, go ahead. I'm sorry. This is not working, but go ahead.
Well, we always encourage people to come here to our visitor center, and then they can talk to people that have hiked the trail and test out some of the easier sections and get acclimatized. We also have a section nearby known as the roller coaster, which is a lot of up and down and a good approximation for what people might encounter in Georgia when they first start out.
Ah, okay. Very good.
Now, it seems to me like, too, you would have to have the cooperation of, like, friends or family to mail you some of those packages at sort of strategic times or,
Yeah,
rely
that's
on
definitely
them.
helpful. But more and more, because of the increasing number of hikers each year, and there's this sort of predictable group of people that are going to come through and buy a lot of stuff during the hiker season, there are more and more hiker-friendly businesses along the trail. So for someone that just doesn't have a whole support team and time to package 6 months worth of mail drops, they can pretty much go to Springer Mountain with 3 to 5 days worth of food and pick up what they need along the way as they go. And certainly it's beneficial to do some planning, and mail drops are always nice to get things from home. But in terms of getting your basic needs met, that can be done along the trail once you get there. It's not, yes, it's a wilderness experience, but you've got civilization typically isn't too far away.
How much does it
Sure,
cost?
typically-
How much does it cost?
Yeah, how much are you
These
going
days,
to spend if you want to hike the trail?
$3,000 to $5,000 for the 6 months you're out on the trail, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's a hefty chunk of money. But think about any other vacation you might want to take,
Sure.
and suddenly it looks very, very reasonable.
And that
Maybe
goes.
$1,000 or two of gear.
That's what you're saying. $1,000 or $2 of gear, and the rest of it is food.
Food and lodging,
Okay.
and it's not that you eat all that food. It's just that when you get to a town after being somewhat deprived for 3 to 5 days, that you go to a restaurant and you order a big meal, and
Yeah.
you're still hungry, and you do it all over again in one sitting.
Uh-huh.
So you can.
Oh, really? People eat
lot.
like 2 giant meals in one sitting?
Yes, you burn 4,000 to 6,000, maybe even more calories a day. There's just no way you
Wow.
can carry those kind of calories on your back. So you come into town with this huge deficit.
Uh-huh.
So it's great fun. You can eat everything you ever dreamed of eating and still lose weight.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm like thinking, that might be my
And
what I need
what
to.
percentage of
half
people?
gallons of ice.
Oh yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
yeah. But no, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, you.
No, I was just going to say, about what percentage of the people that start the trail actually finish?
Good question. Nowadays, it's actually between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4. For a long time, it was 1 in 10, but because of all the information that's out there, the increased opportunities for resupply, and just better gear, I think all those things have helped contributed. Plus, trekking poles. Trekking poles really help protect your knees, and that's one of the things that knocks a lot of people out is injury to the knees. And
Yeah.
that one
I
thing,
think we-
trekking poles, I think, made a difference.
That's a great idea. I have trekking poles myself. I love them. But one of the things, too, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask here before we run out of time is about safety. I think that'd be a concern of a lot of people on the trail.
Sure. The thing about the Appalachian Trail is it's this national icon, and when something happens on the trail, it gets a huge amount of publicity.
Yeah.
In the course of the trail's history, there have been 10 murders, but 3 to 4 million people a year visit the trail, so statistically the numbers are pretty small.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
we just encourage people to, hike with a partner and use common sense. And there are safety guidelines on our website if people are looking for more in-depth tips. And one other thing I did want to mention is the AT is a really gratifying place to do volunteer work. And even though they're in Ohio, you're obviously not going to adopt a section of the Appalachian Trail. You can come out and work on our trail crew for 5 days at a time. And that's a really fun and challenging and exciting experience, a great way to be involved and build a little piece of your own Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, and then
It's all on our website,
it's on your website, and your website address again is.
AppalachianTrail.org.
Very good. Now tell me, just one last question here. Can you give us a little bit, and we're almost out of time, about your experience hiking the Appalachian Trail and kind of what you thought was the best, maybe, or the most difficult or challenging part of your personal experience?
Well, for me, through hiking, it was this just incredible immersion with nature and feeling just close to the earth, and incredible beauty. Just every day, majestic views, and every day you just felt so alive. I mean, almost every day on the trail, I can remember something I saw, or a person I met, or some kind of encounter. In terms of the most difficult section, definitely it's New Hampshire and Maine. There's a place known as Mahoosuc Notch, which is filled with car-sized boulders that you have to climb over and under and alongside. And also Katahdin, the very northern terminus, is also probably the most difficult 5 miles. You climb 4,000 feet in 5 miles, and then you end on the most magnificent mountain on the entire East Coast. It's a pretty dramatic, thrilling way to end a hike.
Wow, fantastic.
Sounds wonderful.
Does really sound great. Well, Lori, thank you. Pottiger. I don't know. I'm going to say your name wrong. I should never say name.
Pottiger.
Pottiger. Okay, Lori Pottiger.
It's hard.
It's a little hard. Thank you very much for being on the show with us.
Thank you, and check back
Well,
to the
it's been a pleasure.
BrianJoeShow.com. We're going to have a post with more information.
Yeah, very good. And I guess we're having a little bit. I apologize. It seems like we're having a little bit of Skype delay here, so that's why I think we're all being sort of cautious because we're trying not to talk over each other. So, apologize for those listening, and I apologize to you, Lori, for that, and Brian, apologize to you too. I'm sorry, everybody.
Well, I hope to see you out on the trail one day, both of you guys.
That would be great. I'd love that. Brian, y'all in?
It's a good chance, but not through a through hike, just a day hike.
Maybe a day hike. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, that's where we all start.
That's where we all start, and then we'll all talk them into the other stuff later.
There you go.
Okay, Lori, thank you very much. We have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of the Brian and Joe Radio Show and Dr. Ann Paris on WVQC 95.7 FM, Radio Free Cincinnati. Okay, cool. That was sort of like hard to do a little bit, but let's see. I'm like debating. Do I like tell people? I was debating whether I tell people our relationship.
I think not.
No? Okay. Just leave it out. Okay.
Different last name, so there's no.
Okay. I mean, I guess nobody. That's not that. I'm not talking about anything super controversial. Okay.
It's funny she used the word immersed and at one with nature, and so.
Ah, yeah. Very good. Yeah, I have to say, I got the book from the library, and then you sent me this one, and I didn't get the chance to read it more.
Sure.
I'm going to, but.
What was her name again? What was her name? What was her name?
Lori.
Lori.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Brian and Joe Radio Show. Brian, hopefully you're still there.
I am still here.
Okay.
I can't hear the brakes, so.
Oh, you
I
can't. I'm
rely
sorry.
on you.
I wonder why
I
that's.
just want to say, after we come back from break, we encourage our listeners to support Media Bridges and WVQC by visiting www.vqc.org. They make a lot of our show possible, and we want to thank them. So, Joe, if you want to introduce our next guest,
Yeah.
I know that you've known her a lot longer, so I thought I would leave that up to you.
Yeah, very good. Well, yeah, I've known Ann for a very long time. She's been a practicing psychologist for many years, and I'm now reading the questions instead of. Man, oh man.
You want me to start?
No, I got it. I flipped the wrong page. Ann is from Columbus, Ohio, but she lives in Cincinnati and has for a long time. She's a clinical psychologist practicing with artists for more than 20 years. She co-founded the Cincinnati Center for Self-Psychology, a training and educational institute for mental health professionals in the theory and practice of self-psychology theory. Her work with creative people helped shape her career, in which she has not only worked with artists, but also has written a book about the creative process called, I'm not reading this at all, folks, Standing at Water's Edge, Moving Past Fear, Blocks, and Pitfalls to Discover the Power of Creative Immersion. Got a copy of the book right here. She was recently featured on Soundcheck, on WNYC, an NPR affiliate station. I'm holding her book up to the camera right now. So, Ann Paris, thank you very much for being a part of the Brian and Joe Radio Show.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And this is my first time meeting you, but Joe's told me a lot about you.
Oh, good. I hope they're good things.
Well, no, he's excited to have you on the show.
Very excited, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Very good. So, Ann, I guess I can start with some of the questions here. How did you get involved in this whole idea of working with creative people?
Well, in my practice, I began my career focusing on trauma work and working with people who'd been through traumas, and had put together a group for trauma survivors. And it just so happened that all of them were artists. And
Interesting.
In our,
Can you say why?
well, I think it was kind of a random thing. I don't know that all trauma survivors are artists, but it was kind of a synchronicitous kind of thing that everybody in the group did some kind of creative work. And through that group experience, we found that even though we were there to talk about the effects of trauma in their lives, that everyone became more productive with their artwork. And it really seemed to highlight how important support was for people's capacity to be creative and to dive into their art. So that was really the beginnings of my interest in it, and then kind of over the years just got a reputation and had more and more artists come to see me, so it kind of evolved over time.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Brian, are you able to
creative type yourself?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in this. Ann, are you a creative personality, creative type yourself?
I would say that through my life, I've kind of seen myself as half creative and half academic, and this has been kind of a neat way to integrate both things in my life. And I see doing psychotherapy as a pretty artistic process itself, but working with artists has been fun. In my own life, I've enjoyed writing and dancing, so those have been my creative outlets.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a little bit what defines a creative type? I mean, all of us have an idea about that, and obviously, there's kind of a left brain, right brain dichotomy, and I think we all exhibit some qualities of both. But what do you mean when you talk about creative types?
Well, and when I say that, I really don't know that there's a specific type. I mean, I've come to appreciate how much creativity we all use in our everyday lives, and that to one degree or not, we may focus on it or, put it into artistic form, music or sculpting or painting or dancing, but we really all have the capacity to be creative in various realms in our lives, and I think that's important to know that it's not that we are a creative type or not. It's just how do we access that part of ourselves that can come up with new ideas or new whatever products or
sure
dreams.
Through your work and your research over the years, what are some of the special issues that you see facing people that are trying to access their creativity?
I guess one of the main things over the years has been people coming in to see me and saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I can't seem to start on this project. I've been thinking about it for years, or I must be lazy, or I must be weak, or maybe I just am distractible, but something's wrong with me that I can't seem to pursue this dream that I have. And I've really come to appreciate over the years that rather than looking at it as a deficit, that we try to understand the context of the personal relationships in a person's life, and that it's really through those that inspires us and kind of propels us into feeling strong enough to take that leap into creativity.
Mm-hmm. Somebody said to me a long time about, it was around 2003, I remember that That's when I knew that person. And she's an artist. She makes pictures, and she does that all the time. And I had no question that she's an artist. She sells her art and that. And she said to me one day, "Joe, you're an artist." And I'm like, "No, I mean, but I've had a camera since I was a little kid, and I go everywhere with a camera, and I guess you could say that this radio show is an expression of that kind of stuff." So do you ever have people that just don't really think of themselves as artists?
Right. Don't consider themselves as artists, and I think that's where it's really important to see that it's not a trait that we have or we don't. I think it's more of a process that if we've got good support around us, that it really helps us be at our best, and that we become creative out of that solid sense of being supported.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I was interested in and noted was when Lori was talking about her experience on the Appalachian Trail, that it was one of immersion, and she even used that word, and it's the word that I use to define that state of being at one with, and at one with something else, and whatever that may be, an art form or an idea or words or a conversation. I mean that when we can become immersed in it, that's where we feel alive, and that's where I believe creativity comes from, are those immersive kinds of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, recently you've published a book, and judging by the reviews and things we've heard about it, Standing at Water's Edge is what it's called, moving past fears, blocks, and pitfalls to discover the power of creative imagination.
Immersion. Creative immersion.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what I said. But anyway, this book has been helpful for a lot of people, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the title, specifically Standing at Water's Edge, and what that means, and then also the audience that you wrote this book for.
Yes, I came up with the title through my own experience in working on the book. It felt that every time I would plan to sit down to write it, I would have this feeling that I was standing on a cliff and that I had to dive into this process, and it became a very apt metaphor in my own experience. And I really did write it for anyone who is feeling blocked or stuck or just unable to immerse into their creative work and start and sustain and finish a project.
Mm-hmm. So what's the process that you go through then if I come to you, and maybe what's an example? I mean, are you just have one day where you're just not creative? And I think I read a little bit in the introduction, you talk a little bit about depression and kind of how that might play into this as well too, because I mean, especially in living where we're living, I'm so glad to see the sun.
Yeah,
because I feel all of a sudden like I feel like I'm a little bee, like, oh, the sun's out, and I want to start getting productive again and make honey. But
creative.
It'd be creative, but and I don't even realize it half the time that I'm like in this funk until it's been a month or 2 months into it, and it's like, how do you get out of it? You just don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah. I see that the whole process is very up and down, and that there's really a strong emotional element to it, and that.
I think Brian just left. No, did you just get on your motorcycle and leave there?
That was I'm down the street. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, Brian's like, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here.
It's like we have inadvertent sound effects. Okay, yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that people need to appreciate as natural, as normal, is part of the process, and is going to happen. That you can, for one day you can immerse into, say, your songwriting very easily. Another day it may be very hard. And that to accept that as normal and part of the process. And then when you're having one of those times when you can't seem to immerse in your work, immerse in something else that you can. There are many ways to immerse, areas spiritually, in play, in someone else's art. All of these experiences of immersion, I think, give us that strength and that inspiration then to turn back to our work. I think that it's when people don't have other places to immerse or other relationships to turn to in those down times, that's when they can become depressed and kind of feel flat and empty and question if they have any creativity left in them.
Mm-hmm. What's the worst sort of situation you think you've seen somebody in? Maybe, not talk about their name or anything like that, but situation that you can maybe relay, and then maybe hopefully it's a positive result. But
well, I immediately think of one man that I worked with that had long been a writer and had been stuck, unable to write, and he was also quite isolated, and he was actually one of the people in this group that I talked about, the trauma group, and he developed a pretty severe depression that involved some addictive behaviors, and really got so bad that he had to be hospitalized for a while. But that we found that when he became engaged in therapy and connected and had some a good relational connection, that he came back to life and started writing again.
I think that's interesting, and I know, Brian, that if I talk right away, I don't give you a chance to ask a question. So if you want to say something, just jump up. But that it's interesting, the immersion with kind of like you say, maybe go to a museum or go to a church. I mean, I'm not a very religious person, but I find inspiration in going to a beautiful church, like a beautiful space, like some of the churches we have here in Cincinnati,
or nature,
yeah, exactly. And you find that that's a good way, kind of a low level way to kind of maybe boost up your creativity a little bit.
Right. I think, that when we can feel immersed in those experiences, that often that ignites our own creativity and inspires us to move ahead. Is
there something like among artists is there like a common thread? Are they like super sensitive to their environments? Or are they what is it there? What's kind of a baseline, maybe a common denominator among artists that you see?
There may be some biological sensitivity that they may, perceive things that I may not. They may be sensitive and pick up on little sensations or colors that I may not. And one of the things that I think is important too is to kind of dispel this myth of the isolated artist. I think that so many people in our culture believe that they should be able to do it alone, that they shouldn't care about the response of other people, that they should be confident enough to do their thing, and kind of regardless of what other people feel about it. But I've found that being human, we do care, and that when we're isolated, that it's very hard to continue to be productive and invest our full self in this process without any feedback and without any support. And I end up with a lot of the people that I work with, the bulk of our work is around how do they establish the kinds of relationships in their lives that are going to support them and inspire them and appreciate what they're trying to do, and that really gives them the fuel to keep risking and keep going.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Excuse me, if I would like to jump in real quick with a question, because I recently came down to New Orleans with my wife. She's finishing up grad school down here, and Joe actually came down and visited. We recorded a couple programs at the end of January. And my experience in coming to New Orleans is that this is a very creative place. And so what my question is do you feel that there are places, both here, abroad, just anywhere, where creativity seems to flow better?
Interesting question.
That's a good question.
I would, initially say that anywhere that artists congregate is a creative place, because again, they're around people that understand, that appreciate, and that can hopefully support each other in that. And then I'd also say probably places of great natural beauty that artists can go and really immerse into the nature will inspire many of their of their artistic ideas and projects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was going to say down here, the feeling more comes from the community, I think, necessarily than the place, but the people. And,
yeah, I think
Joe, I'm going to throw it back to you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The more that we can accept that we do need people, we do need others, and I've outlined there are three particular types of relationships that help us along in our creativity, and those are mirrors, heroes, and twins. Mirrors are people who appreciate what we're doing. They see our talents. And they can really give us the strength to keep risking and keep diving in. Heroes, people that we admire and look up to and can immerse in their work, will often inspire us forward. And then twins are those people who are doing the same thing, they're feeling the same things, or struggling with the same things, and they're in the same boat, and they, can really help us to feel like they really get it and they really appreciate it, and that we're not alone. And that doesn't mean we're inadequate. It just means we're human and engaged in the process.
Sure. I think Joe's my twin.
I think there might be something to be said for that.
Well, and people can be all three. At one point, Joe may be your twin. At another point, he may be your hero. Another point, he may be your mirror. And those are really healthy and energized kinds of relationships, and can really help both people forward.
Yeah, and not to start doing therapy or anything like that, but but Brian and I have known each other for a long time. I got with 1987, so that makes it 20. I can't do math. 23 years that I've known, and I, not to take anything away with any of my other friends, but I there's like a connection with this guy that it's bizarre.
And here you are doing this together.
I know. What a shocking thing, right, Brian?
We sure. It's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ann, thank you very much. Ann Paris is the author of this book right here called Standing at Water's Edge, Moving Past Fear, Blocks, and Pitfalls to Discover the Power of Creative Immersion. Holding it up again to the camera so you can find it really easily. Where can you get it, Ann?
Amazon.com, my website, www.annparis.com. That's Ann with an E at the end, and Paris like the city.
Paris like the city, or Google it, right? You can always Google
it, or Barnes & Noble. It's out there.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming down today, being a part of this.
Great. It was fun.
Pleasure to meet you, Ann.
You too.
Very good. Okay, we'll be right back with our regular contributor, the foodie, Katie Crossan. Kate the Great, if you're from Cincinnati and you're on any kind of social media, you know exactly who she is. So, all right, we'll be right back on the Brian and Joe Radio Show on WVQC. Or maybe not, because this thing's not working. Oh, gosh, look at that. It didn't work. Brian?
Yeah, I'm still here.
We have issues. Oh, it didn't work.
We're having issues getting to break.
Yeah, we're having a little problem. But you know what?
Why don't we bring Kate in?
Yeah, why don't we just bring Katie in? Because that's, for some reason, that's not working. Well, here, I can play this part. Watch it. We'll just do it. All right, that was our weird break, Brian.
Absolutely. I guess right now who we have joining us is Katie Cross, and she's one of the Brian and Joe Radio Show featured contributors. And you can go to our website, brianjoeshow.com/contributors, and find out a little bit more about her.
Yeah.
Of course, if you've been listening all along here, you noticed she was on our, I think it was episode 16, which was our holiday show last year in December. And she has a BA in journalism from University of Kentucky. We poked fun at that the last time she was on. She's now the Senior Associate in Marketing at the United Way of Greater Cincinnati. And she's also a former television news producer. She's a passionate, candid, and interesting blogger, and you can read her posts at Kate's Random Musings. There's links on our website to all of these. She's a member of the Junior League of Cincinnati, and the last time she came on, she talked a little bit about her cookbook called Cincinnati Seasoned, which is available through the Junior League website and at Joseph Betts. So anyway, welcome, Katie. Thank you so much for joining us.
And I have to add one other thing about her that you didn't mention, but which is that she does the voiceover. She does voiceovers for the Brian and Joe radio show. They haven't been used yet, though, because I haven't edited her. I just have been editing them as I go along. It's actually kind of an arduous process to edit all this stuff out, but
She has a fabulous voice. I didn't
Oh,
mention
you're so
that.
kind. And
She-
I think there's one that's saucy.
oh yeah, there's one that's saucy for sure. I think I turned your try it again. I turned your mic down, and I don't know why, but
Test.
oh, there you go. There
Hey,
you-
but Brian, I do have to say, just so you know, the Cats won today, so they are barreling through the SEC tournament. Go Big Blue, and I think that on April 5th we will bring some hardware back to Lexington. Just saying.
Oh Lord.
wow.
Just saying.
Oh Lord.
My wife's from Kentucky, and her
He gets a
family
lot of
loves
it
Kentucky.
from that. I feel sorry for
I
him.
won't do the Cats cheer.
Good.
There's worse things that can happen. I might actually root for UK if they play somebody like,
Duke.
geez, who else is out there? Duke or something.
Yeah, Duke. I'll do that. I go for that. So, but we're talking about food.
We are.
Katie is a food for sure. I'll just like put an emphasis on the food She is she knows her food, and so we thought we'd talk a little bit. It's getting to be spring.
It
and
is.
What do you eat in the spring?
Well, you know, the springtime really does bring with it a whole host of things that you can introduce to your repertoire. And, you know, I mean, certainly it's all like vegetable focused. You know, in the fall and winter, we were all about gourds and squash, things like that. Pumpkin, if you're daring. But now it's all about things that are green and fresh. And I would say, certainly one of my favorites is artichokes. Love it. Have you guys ever prepared artichokes before?
Eating them.
Yeah.
I've seen
I
them
have.
growing in
I
on
have.
the
It's been a
side of the
while.
highway out in California.
Brian, you have? Have you ever
I
prepared?
have. I steamed one. Isn't that
Yeah,
the
I mean,
preferred way, or-
that is the simplest way to embark upon, you know, you look at the artichoke and it's kind of almost like the vegetable food group's porcupine. That's what I think of when I see it, all of those points and jags and whatnot. And the really simple, it's, you know, it is a very seasonal spring thing, you know, totally in season here in the United States in the spring. And the one great thing that I love about it is the artichoke promotes liver health.
So you can drink more.
Yeah. You know,
And
if
the liver is a very important organ. It removes a lot of the toxins from the body.
Kentucky bourbon, wine, beer, you know, whatever your
It
poison,
removes all kinds of toxins. Yeah.
whatever your poison may be, an artichoke kind of helps keep your liver on a healthy level. And also, it's great for migraine relief. Who knew?
Huh. Interesting. So eat
Yeah.
more artichoke if you have a headache.
Yeah.
A bad headache, right?
Yeah, you know, just
So any kind of like what I think of when I have artichokes, I like them on pizza. Mm-hmm. I like them in mixed with mayonnaise and spinach.
Oh,
and
yeah.
baked
Yeah.
with cheese.
classic spinach and artichoke dip.
Yeah,
Every
I
mom
just-
has a recipe.
Yes, exactly. It's the artery clogging recipe. Yes, but very tasty at an Applebee's near you.
There's no health value there.
No, but at an Applebee's near you.
Yes.
So pick one up today.
Is Applebee's advertising on this?
No,
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah, it would be kind of awesome because it'd be nice to get paid for this. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
It would be great.
Yeah. So Applebee's, come on in. There's going to be a rush. Believe me, after they hear it on this, there's going to be a rush on artichoke dip.
Knocking on the door.
They're going to be knocking. They're going to be like, "What's going
I want to
on?
ask Katie.
What's this Brian and Joe radio show? And who the hell's Katie Crossan? We need to
Yeah.
we need to track these people down." Brian has a serious question, I think.
I do have a little bit of a serious question. I've noticed in media, of course, we were talking at the top of the show about the Academy Awards, and one of the documentaries that was up for nomination this year was Food Inc., talking about food production. And
Oh, yeah.
I know Oprah did a show recently about food production and had some authors and other people on talking about this. Since you're such a foodie, what's going on in the world of food? Is there a newer awareness about how our food is produced?
Well, certainly, I think it's become more popular in the middle regions of the United States, but the whole locavore concept that is really popular among a certain class of foodies and a certain class of restaurateurs. And Alice Waters of the Jardinier, not Chez Panisse in San Francisco. She is really kind of like the mother of the locavore movement, but she launched that in the 70s, and it's really only become in vogue here certainly in Cincinnati, I would say maybe in the past, 5 years or so.
It's in vogue here?
It is.
Wow, I had no idea.
Well, are you in vogue?
No.
Okay.
That explains that.
I'm teasing you,
What are
Joe.
some of the
Aw.
winter?
So sad.
What are some of the winter vegetables or the early spring vegetables that are local or available in Ohio and Indiana and Kentucky?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's one that I am really excited about. In fact, I made a call about today to Madison's at Finley Market. They are probably one of the only places, at least of a store, where you can get fiddlehead ferns. And have you guys ever seen those?
No.
It's a green, and it really does look like the scroll at the end of a fiddle. And it kind of tastes more like asparagus. And I think that they look beautiful in salads, or you can saute them. And I'm just chomping at the bit because they have such a narrow window of being fresh. And April, that's when we're going to see them here in Cincinnati.
Wow.
Very good. We just ran out of time, Brian. I don't know what happened. I looked at the clock and I went, "Holy crap, we're over." So
I want to invite Katie to feel free to send us information for the blog.
I've got
we'd
the
like to put
top
more
6
information.
veggies. Top 6 for
give
spring.
them us real quick.
Artichokes, asparagus, avocado, fennel, fiddlehead ferns, and mustard greens.
Sweet. Buy those today at your local grocery store.
Yeah.
We're at Finley Market.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic, Katie. Thanks for being our guest today.
Sure.
And Paris, thanks for being our guest today. Lori Pottiger, thanks for being our guest today from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, not the conference. Brian,
Joe,
thank you
thanks
for being.
having me.
You're always welcome on this show, Brian.
No, it's terrific, and we've got a bunch of shows coming up.
We got a bunch. We're going to be recording a bunch, because I'm going to be in California for a couple weeks, so we're going to be recording a bunch of shows in the coming weeks. So there'll be some live opportunities here if you want to watch them soon, and we'll post those on our website and Twitter stream and that kind of stuff. But really, I guess next
Happy
week
St.
we're
Patty's Day.
Hey, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. That's tomorrow. Woohoo! St. Patrick's Day, and then we'll be back.
Actually, Wednesday.
That's tomorrow. She doesn't know the secret. Oh, we'll get everybody on the same page next time. Anyway, thanks for listening to the Brian and Joe Show. Next week it's hopefully gossip. We're going to talk about gossip and income taxes. Weird kind of thing to put together, right, Brian?
It's appropriate.
We're way over. So anyway, stay tuned for Hemp Block Radio with Lynn Wilson. We get you down, she gets you high. All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good job there, Joe.
BJRS. That's 513-443-BJRS or 443-2577. The Brian and Joe Radio Show was created by Joe Wessels and Brian Mueller, who also serve as executive producers. Special thanks to Katie Finnegan, WVQC's coordinator. Our mascot is Little John Herskovich. The show is recorded around the planet and produced at the studios of WVQC FM in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest on the Brian and Joe Radio Show, send an email to producer@brianjoeshow.com or send a letter to the Brian and Joe Radio Show, P.O. Box 912, Cincinnati, Ohio 45201. WVQC is a nearly all volunteer-run community radio station.
You clowns ought to be fired.
That guy.
Cool.
Good stuff.